Hey, what's up everyone? I'm SuperSonicJB. That's what I say every time I make a YouTube video. I've been doing it for about 8 years now, and I've been enjoying it. But one day, everything changed. I was sitting there doing my normal intro, when all of a sudden, she appeared. She looked like a lolly fox girl. You know, like one you'd see in an anime. She started ranting about demons attacking the town or something. I don't know, I wasn't listening. I was too busy narrating my thoughts in my head. She then said something about me being a god slayer, and she might help in saving the world. But then I was too busy thinking about how funny it'd be seeing her get bonked in the head. Then a giant demon came and destroyed everything. I guess I should have listened to what that fox girl was saying. But then the next thing you know... Hey, what's up everybody? I'm SuperSonicJB. I was warped back to the start of this video. It's almost like I time traveled. Maybe I'm stuck in an endless loop, just like in that game Loop8 Summer of Gods. Or maybe this is just a dumb joke to the start of this video. Throughout the years, I've become a huge fan of JRPGs. I mean, you got great games like Persona 5, Dragon Quest XI, Tales of Vesperia, Moko Friends! So yeah, I'm a big fan of JRPGs, and they have become super popular lately, and I've been having a blast playing through a lot of them. 2023 is an especially big year for JRPGs, since we got so many of them. However, there was one game that came out last year, and not a lot of people are familiar with it, and that game is Loop8 Summer of Gods. This was a JRPG released in 2023 for the PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. It was another one of those inspired by Persona RPGs, with it containing a lot of similarities in the gameplay. One of the biggest mechanics this game had was constantly traveling back in time to the start of the summer to try multiple routes in order to save the world, which is a concept that sounds good, but according to a lot of reviews online, this game wasn't received very well. There were numerous complaints about this game, especially when it came to the game's time looping mechanic. Now this game apparently didn't have that big of a budget, yet it had some pretty popular voice actors in it, which begs the question, was most of the game's budget spent on the voice acting? Not sure, but I decided I wanted to check out this game and review it, because I'm usually a big fan of Persona-like RPGs. So without further ado, let's check out Loop8 Summer of Gods. The game starts off just like how Persona 5 does, with a voice saying that this game is a work of fiction, and that none of the events have a connection to anything. The only real difference between this and the Persona 5 opening is the fact that a talking squirrel is saying all this. Sandy, is that you? So the game starts off with a bunch of dialogue, talking about a type of demon known as Kagai. These Kagai have been appearing in Japan since ancient times, and they've been destroying countless lives and ruining the land. And Japan keeps rebuilding over and over again so that humanity can live on. It's nice that this intro does give us some backstory, but let me just say this now. This game's story gets kinda confusing, so be prepared because there's a lot of moments that will make you say, "What?" Then we're watching an anime cutscene, and the protagonist of the game is riding a train and is headed to a town called Ashihara, where he will be living from now on, and he'll be attending school there. My gosh, the Persona 5 similarities are everywhere right now! What's next? We're gonna learn that the main character got into some legal trouble with some politician?
Damn brat! I'll sue!
He also does that anime cliche of narrating the story in his head, just like the intro of this video. Also, our protagonist here was actually living up in space before this because that provides shelter from the Kagai. Or something. I don't know, something like that. I wasn't listening. When he arrives in Ashihara, he meets up with his cousin Konoha. And I love how the first time we see her, he does that iconic tilted head, eyes closed smile thing that you'd see in a lot of animes.
This is the story of how I found my own home.
Is that space colony Ark? So our main character's name is Nini, and he'll be living with his cousin Konoha in Ashihara from now on. Also, Konoha shares the same voice actress as Haru from Persona 5. My gosh, she's in everything nowadays. We then finally arrive at our new house, and honestly, it's a pretty nice place. Nini will also be living in his grandma's old room, and she apparently went missing one day and never came back. Wow, Grandma. Wow. Konoha even states that Nini will get used to living on Earth, and he will get used to the gravity here. The next day we go to school to complete our registration. We also meet our new teacher, Miss Cooney. I wonder if I can date the teacher in this game. Also, apparently there's only 4 students that go to school here. That's a pretty small amount of students. I'm kinda surprised the school hasn't shut down yet. Oh, okay, so there's another transfer student coming here soon. That'll make 5 full students. How are we gonna fit them all here? After talking to Miss Cooney for a bit, we head back home, and Konoha mentions that starting tomorrow, we're free to do whatever we want. Well, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, take some of that. Yeah, take that, Cloud. Oh, here comes Joker. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, Joker killed Kirby. Oh, Link's coming to defend Cloud. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, Joker goes down. And now it's Link versus Cloud. Die, 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 die. And they're both dead. Wait, were you watching that?
Also, she mentions that Miss Cooney has extra summer lessons tomorrow, but since it's summer vacation right now, that means we don't have to go. I mean, personally, I always thought school was boring, so I'd probably pass on these summer lessons. The next day, we're finally able to start playing the game. It only took around 17 minutes, but now we can finally move around freely. First thing the game teaches us is how to fast travel. Now, usually fast traveling in games is simple, it doesn't use up any time, but here in Loop 8, moving around the map uses up stamina and time. So basically, if you travel from home to school, you use up around 48 in-game minutes and 5% of your stamina. So you'll have to use warping in a very strategic manner, which honestly, I'm not a huge fan of. But it does make it feel more realistic. I will miss the good old days of traveling across the world in 3 seconds though.
Alright, time for my trip to Japan. Oh, thank God I made it here. I lagged there for a second. I thought I'd take 10 whole seconds to get here.
Another thing to keep in mind while playing this game is that it does use a day-to-day calendar system. So doing any activities uses up time in a day. And you'll eventually have to go to bed at night to move on to the next day to progress the story. So we end up going to school for summer lessons. And wow, I just had to say this right off the bat. The frame rate in this game is absolute garbage. The game loses frames constantly. And sometimes I feel like I'm only doing around 10 frames per second. That's like brawl lag right there! I also think the main character's running animation is kind of hilarious. While running around the school, you can interact with some things, but since we have to follow our main objective, we can't do whatever we want yet. You lied to me, Konoha! Also, just a little nitpick I have, but why does the game always fade to black for a few seconds after I interact with something? What, does it have to reset itself because it thought I'd do something productive? I'm playing Loop8 Summer of Gods! You don't get more productive than that. So something else to keep in mind while you're walking around is that time will continue to go on. Yeah, every minute in this game lasts around 3 seconds, so if you got somewhere to be at a certain time, you better hurry. What also sucks here is that the game doesn't mark where you're supposed to go on the map. I literally ran around a high school here trying to find the correct classroom before time was up, but there's no indication where you're supposed to go. Plus, all these rooms and hallways look exactly the same, so that doesn't help either. After a lot of wasted time, we finally make it to class, and right as we're about to start, a random fox girl appears out of nowhere. Are you Tomino's third cousin twice removed or something? She yells at us saying that the town is in danger, and mentions that the Kagai are coming to destroy us. She then tells us we should prepare for battle and storm Yomatsu Hirosaka. But before she can tell us more, Konoha drags her off the desk and basically just calls her a crazy student who attends this school. I mean, let's be real here, nothing's crazier than how my man runs in this game. We are then introduced to a new transfer student. Her name is Ichika, and she seems like this serious, emotionless, robotic type of character. Well, I doubt I'll date her later on. Miss Cooney then basically gives us a tutorial on how the school system works in this game, which is basically going to school makes you smarter and makes your social standings increase, blah blah blah. Then we go through even more tutorials involving stuff like training, getting blessings at a shrine, interacting with other characters to further your bonds, and eating at restaurants. So yeah, doing things like training, eating, and hanging out with people uses up time and stamina, and these will help you later on during the combat sections of the game. Yeah, that's right. This game has combat sections. And honestly, I did not like them that much. So in his story on August 4th, some of the Kagai broke through the barrier around Ashihara, and now Nini must go to the shrine where the barrier is located, and he must fight off the Kagai. But why though? Why is he gonna even fight the Kagai in the first place? We've never really heard anything about him being a trained fighter or anything. Heck, we don't even hardly know anything about his backstory, other than the fact that up until now, he's lived in space. And a Kagai attacked the space station he was living on. What is he, just fighting the Kagai because he's an anime protagonist? Yeah, pretty much. At the shrine, we run into the fox girl from before, named Benny, as well as Ichika. Apparently, Benny is a divine messenger sent by the gods to help humanity, and she's also apparently a god herself. And Ichika is apparently a god slayer. They both ask for our help, since Nini has a power known as Demon Sight, which lets him see what other characters are thinking and how they are feeling. And this will come into play in the game's combat. Now, in order to beat the Kagai, Nini can have 2 party members join him in the fight. He can create a party by inviting other characters to join him, and if he improves his relationships, he can gain even more allies to fight alongside him. Anyways, we enter Yomatsu Hirosaka and come across the Kagai, and now we finally get to try out the game's combat. And just look at this little guy, isn't he cute? Alright, time to kill him. Also, my gosh, Benny, why are you moving around like that? So starting off in battle, Nini can use the move Cleave to attack. Before he uses a move though, he has 3 emotions that he can choose from that will affect the power of his attacks. These emotions being friendship, affection, and hate. Each emotion has different effects. For example, hate is the strongest one, but using it too much can make the enemy stronger. Because hate equals evil? I don't know. Your allies on the other hand act on their own, and their actions are heavily influenced by your bonds with them. During battle, Nini can use Demon Sight, which lets him use Foresight or Celestial Sight. Foresight lets you see what other characters are thinking, which helps you predict how party members and enemies will act. Alright, let's use Foresight on Benny and see what she's thinking about. Then Celestial Sight lets you see characters' special status effects, which can be pretty helpful. When Nini's stamina reaches 0, that's an automatic game over, and if any of your allies' stamina hits 0, then you will faint and cannot be revived. Every battle action will deplete some stamina too, so you want to get through these battles as quickly as possible. So basically during battle, you control Nini, and you can select your party members, and choose a move that can help Nini in battle. Your allies will act on their own, and depending on your bonds with you, they can either be really strong in battle, or really weak. So you're probably wondering, how do I feel about the game's combat? And I'll be completely honest, I hate it. The combat is just not that exciting, and it can be kinda confusing sometimes too. Plus, if your bonds with characters aren't that great, combat will be nearly impossible. Then the whole emotion system this game has going for it is so frustrating to keep track of, because if you're not careful, you can accidentally make the enemies and bosses even harder. There's also a small chance that Kagai will hate someone in your party, and this will make them stronger. They're basically like, oh, I hate boss girls, time to die! The fights can also drag on for far too long. I mean, just beating a simple enemy can take a while! And then there's the horrible fact that you can't heal your party in this game. There's no items, and you don't have any healing skills, and that makes things way harder. The gameplay here was just so incredibly frustrating, and if you die in battle, it gets even worse. So let me explain. First boss you fight in this game is this weird tree monster. You'll automatically lose this fight, and once you die, the game basically tells you the world ended and everyone died. Yeesh, what a harsh ending. Then a random voice tells us to wake up, and says that we must end the struggle between the Great Mother and Father, and subjugate Ashihara, that big name right there. Now what does that mean? I have no idea, but I'm sure we'll get answers later. Then we end up traveling back in time, from when we first met Konoha. So yeah, this is the point of the game where you go through your first time loop. This happens every time you die in battle, and it also happens after a certain amount of days. So yeah, anytime you're fighting a boss in this game, if you fail, the game doesn't just ask you to retry, no. It goes through another loop, and you have to start all over again. This can be really frustrating too, but it actually gets worse. Every time you start a new loop, it plays out the exact same way all over again. So you'll be rewatching the same cutscenes you've already seen before, over and over again. And get this, you can't skip any of these cutscenes. Most games like this allow you to fast forward or skip stuff like this, but nope, not Loop8 Summer of Gods. No, you'll have to button mash through the same cutscenes you just watched earlier. Now, what you're supposed to do is go around and find out who the Kagai have possessed. And you'll have to build a team of your own, then travel to the underworld to fight against the Kagai. There's several bosses that you'll need to fight along the way in order to beat the game. So pretty much how the game works from here on out is you play through the beginning portion again, then have some free time where you can increase your stats or develop your bonds with friends. Then you form a party and fight some enemies and a boss. Then go through another time loop because there's still more things that you need to figure out. Also, every time you go through a time loop, all your relationships and stats will go back to how they were at the beginning of the game. So if you were trying to date a girl and it was going smoothly, all that progress will get reset when a time loop happens. I love you, baby. Will you marry me? I love you, baby. Will you marry me? God dang time loops! Now, even though these reset, you can thankfully increase them really quickly the next time around, which is helpful. Also, any blessings that you get from a shrine will carry over from the time loop. You can get blessings from this flying squirrel named Musasa, and by talking to her, you can keep some of your stats after a loop. She can appear in multiple occasions throughout the game whenever you interact with some objects. Honestly, Musasa gets kind of annoying, especially after the 10th time you talk to her. Also, Nini never acts shocked to see a talking floating squirrel appear out of thin air, but who knows? Maybe he just saw the opening cutscene of this game and was just expecting to see her.
Oh, do you feel slightly stronger now? Congratulations! Well, that's all for now. Bye-bye!
Another thing I want to quickly mention are the weird interactions you have with the characters in this game. When you talk to someone, you can get to know them better, flatter them, tease them, or even never mind them.
Never mind!
However, these interactions are kind of awkward. Like, here's me trying to get to know this hot chick better, but then she's just like, thanks a lot, and that's it. That's the end of the conversation. What? All I said was I wanted to get to know her better, and the game doesn't even allow me to do that. I mean, imagine walking up to someone and being like,
Hi, how's it going? You're the best.
that's just weird! Now, I've been talking a lot about the negatives this game has going for it, and you're probably wondering, what are the positive things this game has in it? Well, I will admit, the game does have a nice soundtrack. There's lots of nice and peaceful songs playing as you're exploring the town, and during combat, the music sounds epic and makes you want to keep pushing forward and win the battle. Also, the voice acting is really good in this game. Like I said, the game has a pretty awesome cast here. And, well, that's pretty much all the things I liked about this game. Here's the thing though, this game had so much potential, but the gameplay and story just weren't that great. None of these characters ever felt that interesting, really. Usually in JRPGs I try and pick a best girl, but none of them felt that interesting to choose one. Plus, Nini himself is such a dull and boring protagonist. I mean, he barely talks to anyone. Most of the time he's just narrating his thoughts in his head, and he never seems to show any emotions. Which is hilarious given the fact that the gameplay has the emotional damage stats!
Emotional damage!
So yeah, like I said earlier, the combat in this game is just straight up garbage, and the horrible frame rate makes everything feel even worse. Now the game does have multiple endings, but none of them are really that interesting to talk about, so let's start wrapping things up. Loop8 Summer of Gods was not a very good game in my opinion. The story was lame and confusing, the characters were boring, the combat was terrible, and the constant restarting every time after a loop was infuriating. After playing through this game, I can definitely see why so many people ended up giving it a bad review. Was it the worst JRPG I've ever played? No, of course not. But it was a major letdown, really. But hey, look at the bright side. At least I can have a dance off with Benny. And that was the story of me reviewing Loop8 Summer of Gods. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of this game at all. Maybe that weird box girl over there was trying to warn me about playing this game, but what is she now? I mean, she won't even remember me the next time I go through another time loop. Next thing you know, this whole video is gonna go through another time loop. Hey, what's up everyone?